first 3-game win streak since mid-December.
Yeah.
What's been the common theme during this stretch?
I think our third periods have been very strong. So we go back maybe a week earlier when we were in LA, we took a 1-goal lead, but on back-to-back, and they pushed hard, and I thought we came off a forecheck. But in the last 3 games that we've played, our first has been very strong. Didn't love our second period, but we had a lead going into the third, and we pushed in the third in each one of those. And I think it's as much as suggestion that we have a little bit more jump, a little bit more energy. Now we're coming off back-to-back, so I'm not sure that we have a full tank, but you normally don't in this league anyway. But I've liked our third periods.
Obviously, 2 division leaders tonight. Do these kind of heavyweight matchups mean a little bit more this time of the year when both teams maybe are a little bit more?
Everybody's testing now, right? You're starting to measure a little bit. I don't think that I've never liked that measuring stick game, because it's one game, right? And who you are a week later you might look completely different, and it should be a problem for you. But it is going to be hard and fast. Their systems are almost identical to us. There's only about 1 or 2 things that we do differently, and they're not major things, mostly how we put the puck in on the forecheck, but we're almost identical in the style of game that we play. It'll be fast, it'll be physical. They got some big men, so do we. So it's going to be a good hockey game.
Any update on Samo?
Much better today. He got to skate. A little bit of a history for us in December. We had 2 or 3 guys get sick kind of with the same thing. And it took them a little while. We needed bodies, so they came back in and played when they weren't at 100%. And I think it took us a while to get them back to 100%. So he skates today. We'll get him fed a bunch of times and fill him up and get his energy level back. So we expect him to be ready for St. Louis.
And Forsling is okay to go just
Correct.
optional today? Okay.
Correct.
You played in the era of Gretzky's prime. You coached against Wayne. You coached against Alex. How do you adequately describe how different the eras are and the players are? Because he's chasing this record, but Wayne was a goal scorer, right? How do you describe how different they are as players and how hockey is different?
I'm almost, believe it or not, a little late on that one, because mid-'80s I wasn't there. So
You're playing
by the
junior
time I got to the NHL, and this is meant with respect, I think Wayne Gretzky and probably Mario Lemieux are on their way out. Jaromir Jagr was the player that was different than everybody else, that nobody could stop, and he was just coming into his prime. So they are completely different styles of play. I think that completely different players, other than what an incredible record. For someone to come in and challenge the goal record is impressive, because I do think from 95 to 2006, for me, the game got ground right down. And the best thing that the National Hockey League did was come in with a cap and call the obstruction.
Yep.
So I think it would have been very difficult for any player to go on a tear from 95 to 2006. It was just, and we did it, right? In Carolina to the final. We were clutching and grabbing with the best of them. So then the game opened up from 06, and I think that created the opportunity for a great player to come in and challenge that record. Had the league not changed, I don't think that record gets changed, because the game was progressively going to everybody thought the trap was the worst thing, right? The trap's not the worst thing. What we're all running now is way harder to get through the trap, but the obstruction changed everything and made the game so much better and faster, and allowed young players to come in and make an immediate impact. There's an article out there somewhere in 1995 where Pat Burns, the late Pat Burns, he's kind of getting the gears from the media in Boston, because Joe Thornton's on the 4th line and he's not playing. And his answer was, look, he's just a kid. He's got to put on another 20 pounds. Well, George Thornton's a huge man, right? But at that era, it was clutch, grab, grind, fight. And I think if the game doesn't change, you wouldn't have seen somebody challenge Wayne Gretzky's record.
You got 3 games left here before the break, and then you're going to go watch 80 of your guys play another tournament. Are you going to just keep their? Do you want them to take it easy on each other? You just keep your fingers crossed that nothing happens among them.
I want them to play as hard as they can and take the entire experience in. I think I don't have a lot of experience of guys from the team, especially in the first 18 years I coached. There weren't a lot of guys going to the national team off our team. Yeah. But when it did, especially if it wasn't a Ron Francis, somebody who had a lot of experience, when a guy went up and got in to walk into that room with all the great players from his country, he came back and he viewed himself differently. I think we're not going to see any fatigue from these players. I think it's a huge boost to them, confidence, speed. They view themselves differently now. They're part of the best in the league, and we're coming off a year that finished pretty good. So there should be some. I'm expecting some juice from that. I mean, the other guy's going to get 10 days off. I got lots of faith in our guys, working out and doing those things. But there's going to be some rust for everybody when you come out, and we're going to have 8 guys come back at the top of their game, I think.
If there's a player that could resist getting Matthew Tkachuk getting under his skin, is it Alexander Barkov?
Yeah, Barkey doesn't get too flared up.
Yeah.
That'll be an interesting one. If you go back in the last 2.5 years, from January of our first year here, Matthew doesn't take very many penalties at all. I mean, he has 2 17-minute nights, and his brother was on the ice at the same time.
We'll be together.
Right, well, would that be a line? Oh, my. Yeah, I mean, but he is, and I think especially what Matthew is brilliant at is the emotional understanding of the game of when it's needed. And I'm not sure in those tournaments that comes up, but he's still going to be a brilliant player. So our team game changed, our discipline changed. He was a big leader in changing that. He's a different player than he was the first 6 months.
Goaltender.
Sergey. Okay, guys.
Thank you.